Six o'clock. It's 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
6 o'clock, so we'd like to start going. We'll start the hearing, so if everyone's listen up.
License plate on their car.
And I guess there's some sort of basketball game on tonight, so we want to get going and get you guys out of here. But anyways, my name's John Fallon, Mass DOT PM for this project. Before we get into the formal start of the hearing, Joe Yu from Mass DOT's producer for this hearing is going to talk a little bit about Mass DOT civil right policy.
Thanks, John. My name is Joe Yu. I'll be your producer for this evening, representing Mass DOT. On this slide, as you can see, this is our policy on diversity and civil rights. All Mass DOT activities, including public meetings like this one, are free of discrimination. Mass DOT complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements, preventing discrimination based on sex, race, color, ancestry, national origin, religion, creed, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, or veteran status. So we welcome diversity from across the entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit the website shown on the screen to reach the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. Thank you for joining our meeting, and we appreciate your participation.
Thanks, John. So again, my name's John Fallon. I'm the project manager for the Boden Lane Bridge Replacement Project, which will be presented tonight. I work in the major projects section at the Mass DOT headquarters in Boston. Once the hearing is completed this evening, the attendance sheet will become part of the public record. So if you'd like to be acknowledged as part of the public record, please sign the sign-in sheet, which is located next to the door over there. Also, handouts regarding the hearing and some detail are also available over there for your taking. Now I'd like to introduce the members of the hearing panel tonight from the District 3 office, Dmitry Magos. Also from District 3, we have Tristan Gregorsevich. From our Right-of-Way Bureau, Ronald Okery. From the town of Natick, John Marshall, the Deputy Town Administrator. And Mass DOT's consultant, design consultant is Chapel Engineering, and from Chapel tonight we have Keith Lincoln and Laura Angelito. Our transcriptionist is Melissa Lupo of Advanced Court Reporters. She will be making a verbatim transcript of tonight's hearing for the public record as required by law. In the handout, the notice hearing is included. The notice appeared in the Metro West Daily News on May 23rd, as well as on the 30th. And our public participation consultant, HNTV, also coordinated with some local community groups regarding letting them know about the hearing. Copy of the notice is in the will be in the final transcript. Also in the public hearing handout, there's a page that explains the purpose of the hearing. In short, the purpose of public hearing is to give an opportunity to the public to make comment on our formal presentation about the proposed project. And it allows us to record your input so that we can use it as we develop the final design. The project we're presenting tonight is the Boden Lane Bridge, crossing the MBTA Railroad. It will replace the function of the Boden
Can we
Lane.
speak a little louder, please?
Yes, I will.
The microphone's working well, or it's your voice?
Okay.
Project? Thank
Yeah,
you.
I will. The project.
Exciting event, we want to hear you.
Gotcha. The project tonight is the Boden Lane Bridge, which was damaged in 2019 and removed. So the project will replace the function of the Boden Lane Bridge, and it will improve. We're proposing to improve the pedestrian bike facilities and reestablish vehicular traffic. We're currently at the preliminary design stage, which means we've developed a preferred concept, coordinated with utility companies, town officials, so that we're ready to present the design to you tonight for public comment. We would then next enter into final design phase, taking the comments we received tonight and incorporating them into the design as practical as possible. We estimate that the total project cost will be $11 million, which will come from federal aid funding, 80% and 20% Mass DOT funding. The project must be programmed in the statewide TIP improvement program in the appropriate year in order for Mass DOT to solicit bids for eventual construction. And the total estimated cost of the project does not include right-of-way acquisition. The design is expected to be completed in early fall of 2025, and construction is estimated to be completed within 18 months. However, as we get into the final design plans, we will continue to fine-tune the construction time duration. As you may be aware, the reason for the project is to replace the function of the bridge that was damaged in 2019. In a few minutes, Keith Lincoln and myself will tell you the details about the project, but right now I'd like to have Ronald O'Cree from Mass DOT right away to talk about the right-of-way process.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald O'Cree, and I represent the Right-of-Way Bureau at Mass DOT. The Right-of-Way Bureau is responsible for acquiring all necessary rights in private and public land for the design, construction, and implementation of this project. Affected property owners will be contacted by personnel from the Right-of-Way Bureau or consultants representing Mass DOT. The procedures used must comply with state and federal regulations governing the acquisition process. The current design plan indicates that fee takings and permanent easements may or will be required. Other areas will also require temporary construction easements. Affected persons' owners' rights are protected under our Massachusetts general laws, primarily Chapter 79. If a project is receiving federal funds like this one is, the property owner's rights are further defined under Title III of the Real Property Acts of 1970 as amended. I will be happy to answer any general questions regarding right-of-way activities during the open forum for questions, and will be available after this public hearing for any specific questions that you may have. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ronald. I'll talk a little bit about the agenda now. Tonight's agenda will discuss how and why the project was developed, introduce you to the project scope and goals, and talk about the schedule as well as the construction. Please keep in mind that the project we are presenting tonight is still in the design stage. Once we are done telling you about the design, I'll explain the hearing procedure, then open it up to hearing, to your questions and comments, which we'll take into consideration as when we're completing the project's design. Please hold all your questions until the presentation is over. So this slide here talks about the project area, just to orientate you. The Boden Lane Bridge is highlighted in the middle of the plan. It's orientated, north up, south down, and begins at the intersection of Boden Lane and West Central Street. And from there, the project extends northerly on Boden Lane to the intersection with Tamarack Road and Burning Tree Lane. Project is about 850 feet in length. So how did we get here? So here's a brief history on the events leading to tonight's hearing. In October of 2019, the Boden Lane Bridge over the MBTA railroad track was struck by a track maintenance vehicle, causing damage which required that the bridge was taken out of service and removed, and a temporary pedestrian bridge only was installed. From there, the Department of Transportation engaged the services of a design consultant, Chapel Engineering, and we began to design work in February 2021 with a full survey of the project area conducted in the spring, and borings to determine the soil conditions performed in the fall of 2021. In July of 2021, we began the first of our coordination meetings with the MBTA in the town of Natick to discuss the scope of the proposed bridge replacement project with those entities. With the site information gathered, we began to develop the design in January and continued coordination with the town and MBTA incorporated their input into the design, which included identifying the preferred concept, and has taken us to the point where we can hold a public hearing tonight. Why was the project initiated? So the next couple slides will show the damage that occurred when the bridge was struck. So in this photo, we see the original bridge was struck and damage done to the truss supporting the roadway. The next slide shows the also collision damage. In this photo, we see the underside of the bridge following the collision and the fracturing of the lower plate member. And the next slide shows the pedestrian-only bridge that was put in place, and which remains today, providing pedestrian access only. So the next couple slides will kind of show you what the bridge looks like, as I'm sure obviously you guys know, but from the closed perspective to traffic, shows you a couple of views of what it currently looks like, the pedestrian bridge that's out there. So the pedestrian bridge in its current configuration is, temporary pedestrian bridge crosses Boden Lane over the railroad tracks. There's no bicycle or vehicular accommodations. So what do we want to do? What do we want to accomplish? So the project goals for this project are fairly straightforward. We want to construct a new bridge that restores the functionality of the previous bridge with enhancements. We want to construct new sidewalks and curb ramps in compliance with the Americans with Disability Act, which are separated from the roadway. We want to provide two-way bicycle access across the bridge, and we want to restore the one-way vehicular traffic that was there in the bridge's original condition. So at this point, I turn it over to Keith Lincoln from Chapel Engineering to talk about the design.
Thank you, John. Do you hear me okay? So here we're looking at a slide of the original Boden Lane Bridge prior to its removal, consisting of a wooden deck with a 12-foot 4-inch out-to-out vehicular lane, one way, one direction of traffic, 5-foot sidewalk, and an overall out-to-out width of 22-foot 4 inches. This slide shows the currently proposed improvements for the bridge, which consist of a 2-foot vehicle shoulder on the east side of the road, a one-way 10-foot travel lane southbound, a 3-foot 8-inch striped buffer which is intended to separate the vehicular traffic from the bicycle traffic, a 2-way 10-foot bicycle lane with a 1-foot shoulder to a 18-inch railing which is intended to provide separation of the 8-foot sidewalk from the vehicles and the bicycles. This slide depicts the southerly end of the project, the intersection of Boden Lane with Route 135, which shows the 10-foot vehicular travel lane coming out to Central Street, proposed crosswalk with high visibility markings crossing Boden Lane at 135. A new sidewalk carried the 8-foot sidewalk down and transitioning into a 6-foot sidewalk to match the existing width. And what we've also proposed is a connection of the bike lane into what will be a shared use path, which is wide enough to carry both bicycles and pedestrians to the existing signalized crossing at across 135. And that came as a result of feedback we received at the public information meeting held in November of 2022. Next slide. This slide depicts the proposed improvements centered at the bridge itself. Again, we see the 8-foot concrete sidewalk across the bridge, the 18-inch bridge railing separating the sidewalk from the moving vehicles, the proposed bridge itself, the one-way roadway, and then the two-way striped bike lane. And then this slide depicts the northerly limits of the project. Again, continuing the one-way travel lane from the intersection of Burning Tree Road and Tamarack Road, the two-way striped bike lane, the 8-foot sidewalk then transitions into the existing 6-foot wide sidewalk, a new crossing, again with the high visibility crosswalk markings, and new compliant wheelchair ramps. So what are the environmental and cultural impacts? As part of our preliminary design, we perform early environmental coordination, which is the diligence we do to evaluate the environmental impacts of this project. And that gets submitted with our 25% submission. And in that, we've learned that the only environmental permit required is a categorical exclusion checklist, which is part of is a federal permit required because the project is receiving federal funds. We also submit to the local historical commission for input based on this project, and we've received a clearance from the Massachusetts Historical Commission for this project. So what is the construction approach? The construction approach follows a few different guidelines. In our coordination with the town, one of the things that we were made aware of was that it's very important to maintain pedestrian access across the bridge throughout construction. The project obviously needs to be coordinated with the MBTA to try and make sure that we interrupt their service as little as possible in the construction of this bridge. We will be relocating some of the utilities that are currently carried on the pedestrian bridge and maintaining them across the new crossing. And we're also not going to be disrupting utility service as part of this construction. So how are we going to do that? The proposed bridge construction consists of 2 stages. In the first stage of construction, we'll be building the westerly half of the bridge, which will encompass the new sidewalk and a portion of the bridge extending into the roadway area. This will be used, or pedestrians will be rerouted onto this newly constructed sidewalk upon completion, and then the existing pedestrian bridge removed once we have the permanent connection of the sidewalk through the work zone. And then we will also be taking the water main, which is currently carried on the existing pedestrian bridge, and placing that in a permanent connection on the new bridge. And then the second stage of construction is a more simple, just completion of the bridge with pedestrian traffic using the existing side, or well, it will be existing at this point, the newly constructed sidewalk, and that will complete the bridge work. And how has our design progressed? As I mentioned before, we held a public information meeting in November of 2022. We got some feedback. One of the bigger comments that we were able to incorporate into the design was the addition of the shared use path connection so that we could provide that crossing across 135 and make a continuous path for bicycles. We also widened the buffer. The buffer at that time was 2 foot wide. We expanded it to the maximum width that we can make it at 3 foot 8 inches. We have continued our coordination with the MBTA in meetings held in December, January, and February. And we've had coordination meetings with the utility owners, the private utility owners, which have infrastructure along Boden Lane, as well as coordination with the town of Natick. And I'm going to turn it back over to John.
Thank you, Keith. So the next steps after this hearing, we'll work on advancing the 75% design level plans, environmental permits, and continue developing the right-of-way documents. That submission will be reviewed by Mass DOT and as well as shared with the the town officials for their input. From there, we will prepare 100% design plans, and final design is expected to be completed in the spring of 2025. After this, the right-of-way acquisition process will be made and completed, and the project will be advertised for construction. The advertisement for construction is anticipated to be in the fall of 2025, with construction anticipated to begin in the spring of 2026 with an estimated 18-month duration. How will we keep you informed? So there's several ways to reach Mass DOT going forward on this project. You can email comments to the email address listed on this slide. That information is also in the handout that's located at the front of the door to the left there, my left. You can submit comments, email or regular mail to the address on the screen, and just include the particulars about the project. And you can also visit Mass DOT Design Public Hearing website, or simply scan the QR code shown on the screen and send your comments electronically. So before I open up the hearing to questions and comments, I'd like to explain the hearing procedure. First, as stated previously, the purpose of this hearing is to get your inputs regarding this project. As the plans are not yet complete, we may not be able to answer all your questions at this point. Next, we ask anyone who wishes to have his or her comments entered into the official hearing transcript to stand up, and Joe will identify you as far as the order in which people provide their comments or questions. And please identify yourself by name, affiliation, if you're in a butter or local official or concerned citizen. And please spell your last name. It's necessary in order for us to obtain a full verbatim transcript as required by law, and it assists our transcriptionists with correctly spelling your name. And also, if you don't want to speak tonight, there's a handout in the handout. There's a mail-in sheet that you can write your comments in. You can either mail them or drop them with us tonight. You need to submit the comments within 10 days of this date, and it will become part of the official record. So, as I mentioned, I'll turn it over to Joe to open up the hearing for public comment. It's traditional protocol to ask initially if there's any elected officials here tonight that would like to speak. Okay, if there aren't, what I'll do is give the mic to Joe, and have him start identifying people that want to provide comment or have questions, and Keith and Laura and others will try to help out answering your questions.
Thanks, John. If you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand. Oh, there we go. You in blue.
My name is Carol Anderson, Anderson. I live at 5 Greenleaf Road, right across from Cole Center. My first question is, what are the compelling reasons for reopening the bridge to automobile traffic?
We really should have had 2 mics.
Yeah, sorry, it's too loud for that. Yeah, thank you for your comment. So the compelling reasons to reestablish what was previously out there was, based upon our coordination with the stakeholders, the town, feedback that we received at the public information session, but the Boden lane configuration prior to being hit provided a traffic route that was used and provided a connection in the town that was desired by the town to reestablish for. And I believe, things that involved emergency response and other sort of connections, were provided, as well as traffic, sort of distribution, not focusing it in one particular area or forcing it elsewhere when it was damaged. Keith, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but.
Yeah, I think you said it well.
I don't know, is there a follow-up allowed?
Oh, yes. We will allow follow-ups, but since there's so many hands right now, we'd like a more equitable participation, so we'll get back to you.
Chris Therian, that's Therrin. I'm at 2 Tamarack, so I'm in a direct abutter to the bridge, and I'm also the town meeting representative for Precinct 2, although not speaking in that capacity. I'm wondering if there's a way to significantly slow traffic. So I have children who I would not allow to play in the front yard until the bridge closed. And there's various reasons. People blow through the stoplight to try to catch air on the bridge. Apparently it was quite fun. A car flipped over one night while I was camping in the backyard with my kid, which is the only reason I know about it, because it didn't make the papers. My neighbor's hedgerow was taken out because another car didn't stop at the stop sign. So it is a very dangerous intersection. I kind of wonder if we're not setting up ourselves for a worse condition by widening it so much to allow for a bike lane. I think the bike lane is very important, but a barrier between the driving lane and the bike lane would prohibit people from trying to pass each other on the bridge, which is exactly what they're going to do. 100% without a doubt, if not trying to race each other over the bridge. So now you're putting pedestrians in danger. I'm waiting for the day when a car rolls down in my yard. I joke, but then a car flipped over on the bridge, so it's not too far off. I would suggest a blinking stop sign. I mean, it may compel some people to stop. It hasn't now. I've seen many accidents in the intersection as well, so there needs to be some way to slow people down before they go over that bridge. And I don't know if there's a way to make the bridge less fun to fly over, but if you could have some sort of traffic calming mechanism, that would be greatly appreciated. It seems like the horse is already in the barn, so we're not stopping this project, but I'm absolutely opposed to the cars being on it. I finally let my children play in the front yard for the last 5 years, so they appreciate that.
Thank you. John, would you like to?
Yeah, take this. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you for your comment. It's very informative, and we appreciate your concerns that you raised. So with the proposed project, the travel lane is only 10 foot wide, and so the narrowness of the lane itself, excuse me, we hope will keep people from desiring to go faster. We also, local enforcement is always, a key thing for preventing that. The design speed for this particular project is basically what the design speed was on the original bridge, is 25 miles per hour. There was, we did do some intersection work that might help slow the traffic down as far as compared to the way it was in its original condition, which allowed people to sort of more freely take the turns. The way we aligned it now, it's a little bit more of a 90-degree intersection, but I'll give the mic to Keith Lincoln to see if he could maybe provide some thought on how, to address some of your concerns.
So in terms of traffic calming, that's something we can definitely look into as this design progresses. That is the type of more of a finer detail that comes out in the final design, whereas this is a very preliminary laying out of the basic horizontal and vertical geometry and bridge structure type. So we are sensitive to your comments, and we will take that into consideration in whatever way we can. One other thing I do want to mention is the railing that we are proposing is a non-mountable railing, so there will be a very defined separation between the sidewalk area and the roadway area. So there will at least be that measure of protection between the vehicles and the pedestrians. And I think, you know, that's something that we will work to define as we develop the design further, the traffic calming. We're hearing what you're saying.
Thank you.
My name is Ray Berger, and I live at 32 Virginia Road, which is about 300 yards from here. I've lived in this area for about 25 years. I think that the bridge is being over-designed. I think you should basically stay with the design almost exactly the way it has been in the past. I don't see any reason for any bicycle paths. And the reason for this is that for a couple of years now, I've been trying to ask members of the town to see what they could do about building a sidewalk that runs from the corner of Tamarack and Boden Lane to the backside of the railroad platform. This would be an easy route for anybody with a wheelchair, or who's walking, or who's pushing a wagon, or a child in a carriage, or just taking it easy. It also would be easy, it would be an alternative to bicycles going across the bridge. With respect to your comments about the American Civil Protection for American, safety
Disability.
workers or something?
Disability, yeah.
Disability Act. Having lived in this area all this time, I've taken the train from the station hundreds of times into town. And all my time, I crossed that bridge walking many, many times, and I've driven across it many, many times during that period. And all that time, I've never seen a person with a wheelchair attempting to go up or down that roadway simply because of the angle, I believe, and or even with the people a set of crutches. So I think a sidewalk running from the corner of Tamarack to the back side of the railroad platform would be a very, very welcome improvement for many people. It would also lessen the need to have the double bike lanes on the bridge. It would also eliminate the considerations for the American Disabilities Act. It would significantly reduce the cost of building this bridge and possibly speed up your schedule, because you won't have to be providing for such a wide bridge as you have in the past. In addition, by making the bridge narrower, you're going to reduce the speed on the bridge, because as previous speakers have mentioned, there's been a tendency to want to drive a little bit too fast, like everybody does today. So I would hope one other thing is that in Wellesley Hills, I think it is, they're right next to the bridge at the railroad tracks there. They have a set of concrete stairs coming down for the passengers to board the tracks or go up away from the tracks. No consideration has been given for that. So in essence, I don't believe much consideration for pedestrians outside of whatever we had in the past is being given now. I think the sidewalk would be a large, large improvement. As far as crossing the tracks, today we have hundreds of people crossing the tracks every day, because the way the station is set up, people must get off on the far side of the tracks in order to cross to the station side. Thank you.
So those are all great points you make. And actually, so those connections that you spoke about as far as getting down from Boden Lane to the station, when we met with the NBTA and talked to them about their proposed West Station improvements in third track project, they are proposing to make connections from Boden Lane down to the station, and it will be from our discussions, they're really early on in the design process, but it would be an elevator as well as a sort of a tiered back and forth connection for down to the station. So, exactly what you were talking about. Our project is specifically the bridge replacement. It's not, we're not part of the MBTA project. However, we're coordinating with them, and we're not going to preclude any of their improvements, as we understand now, by any of our design. But with regard to your comment about if those connections were made, we would need to have our sidewalk, as big, or our bike lane. So yeah, those are policies that we need to meet, and if we can't meet what's required for sidewalk and bike accommodations, we need to get a waiver. And so if it's possible to meet those guidelines, and we don't demonstrate that it's a hardship for us not to meet it, then the project would not get past that phase. So it's part of the direction that we need to look into from projects. In fact, we should be putting sidewalks on both sides of the bridge, but that would just cause a large amount of right-of-way impact, and things along that nature. And Keith, if you had anything to add to that at all.
Just to follow up on what you're saying, John, it would be, if we were to build this to current code, we would have to build the bridge approximately 15 feet wider. We did get a waiver to go down to the width that you see here as proposed, and it is a very robust review process that we have to go through because of the requirements in order to achieve, receive funding for projects through the Massachusetts Department of Transportation and the federal government. So it's a matter of trying to balance out the impacts and the potential ability to serve multiple users.
Thank you. Sorry.
Follow-up?
Oh, yes, follow-ups after we get through everyone else.
Hi, my name is Margie Matros, M-A-T-R-O-S-S, and I live on Boden Lane, sort of diagonally across from the soccer field. And my big concern is, and I'm not sure if I saw it in this, is that I understood that the traffic might be open to commercial traffic. And I see all the traffic coming from the soccer fields. I see kids running out into the street to get soccer balls. I see the kids who play at night, I don't know, middle schoolers riding their bikes up and down the street very freely. That scares me, having trucks going down the street, and I just don't know how that could happen.
So yeah, this did come up at the public information meeting, the potential for a truck exclusion. That's another issue that is a difficult one in order to receive funding to exclude certain use. But again, I think the best thing that we can say is we hear your comment, we understand what you're saying and your concerns, and we will incorporate that into the future design as best we can. However, we are limited by what we can do based on the funding.
Funding precludes something. Funding. It's like, it's a squeeze me over here. Oh, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gail Stahl, S-T-A-H-L. I'm a resident of Boden Lane and have been for over 25 years. So I've seen lots of traffic go up and down this road. My big concern is the safety predominantly and the noise level of vehicles going back and forth. I'd like to know, I know we discussed the possibility of commercial vehicles on the Zoom meeting back in November 2022, but I would like to know what the weight limit is going to be on this bridge. and if it is a commercial weight limit right now, or if it's going to be proposed to be one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. So, yeah, when we designed a new bridge, we designed it for the current codes for bridge construction. So we wouldn't post the bridge to notify, to indicate that it's not adequate for truck traffic. But beyond that, I just want to let Keith weigh in on responding to your comment there.
Right here.
Sorry.
I just have a follow-up.
So, yeah, again, getting back to the previous question, the design has to comply with current statutory loading requirements for a bridge in which public travel is allowed. Like, we can't design a bridge that won't withstand the loading of the vehicles that are legally allowed on the roadways. So that's what we are bound to. I'm sorry, was there a follow-up on that? You asked about the loading, that's
Right, the weight limit on the
the
bridge.
weight limit. I don't know the exact number. Do you know the exact weight
Well,
limit?
I
HL 93,
Yeah, and it also has to accommodate emergency vehicles.
right? So we would, right, that's another really important point, is that it has to be able to accommodate
That's what I'm trying to say.
emergency vehicle traffic as well, being able to utilize the roadway and the bridge.
I just have a follow-up on that.
Yes, great.
Thank you for your question.
I had a follow-up.
Well, like I said, there's a lot of hands raised right now. We'll get to
Right, well,
follow-ups afterwards.
why are we avoiding this subject?
Sorry.
I have a follow-up.
We'll get to the follow-ups after everyone has had a chance to
Okay.
ask an
Okay,
initial
fair enough.
question on how we do things.
Hi, I'm Esther Cohen, Cohen. I live on Gibson. And pre-pandemic, I was taking the train 5 days a week. I was on that train on October 31st, so I know exactly what happened. And I mean, it's post-pandemic, I'm back to 4 days a week. So, going into Boston. When the bridge came down and we had to go all around Mill Street, Burning Tree to Mill to Central, and there was a van. It was awful. And I have two small kids, they go to Brown School, and I get them up and we're getting ready, and every minute counts in the morning. And the train, the MBTA, loves to change the schedule every semester, or whatever, season. So it was 7:45, then it went to 8 o'clock, now it's at 7:54, and it's legit minute by minute in the morning how we function, get the kids out, get the dog walked, and just everyone gets to work. So what is the reality of it really being kept open as pedestrian during 18 months of construction? It just seems kind of unfeasible for that to happen, and if we have to go back to that van that took us around, it was awful. I'm still traumatized by that van. And I don't want this to happen for so many reasons that everyone else is explaining. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there'll be no shuttling of people in this project. We're going to be able to keep the existing pedestrian bridge in service while at the same time they'll be building a portion of the new bridge. And like flicking a switch, when that portion of the new bridge is ready to accept pedestrians, we'll divert the pedestrians onto the new bridge and start dismantling the existing pedestrian bridge. So there's no shuttling. We do understand from talking to the MBTA that it was a difficult shuttling experience.
Thank you, that's a good point. It's going to be a requirement in the contract documents that the contractor maintain pedestrian access road construction, and the Mass DOT personnel will be responsible for making sure the contractor does that. If for some reason there is a reason for the pedestrians not allowed over the bridge, that would have to happen, off hours, night work, when usually nobody would be crossing the bridge.
Thank you very much. My name is Dewey, D-U-B-I, Gordon, G-O-R-D-O-N. I'm a resident of 172 Boden Lane, diagonally across from here. Also a graduate of Cole School in the first kindergarten class here. Okay, no longer a kindergarten here, let alone a school. So I've seen a lot here happening in Boden Lane. And in the 90s, when my kids were young and what have you, I was a soccer coach at all the fields here for at least 4 years, maybe more than what have you. I've seen it all here. I was also in charge of calming the streets down, working with the police department on a regular basis. I will tell you that when it was still one way and everything else like that, it was the most horrific situation going here with cars speeding down here on a regular basis. This is not a street like Mill Street or Speen Street, which is built really for larger traffic or for heavier traffic. The soccer fields literally are on the edge of the street. And this is truly a safety concern here. It's definitely something that if there's commercial vehicles, I know that there's been structural damage on the street as well to some of the houses when, and people kept awake when cars are plowing down the road there at high speeds too in the evening time and everything else like that. I think that this is a disaster in the making here. I don't think that there should be any commercial vehicles here. As far as I'm concerned, I'd be very happy that the bridge stays the way it is, that the pedestrians will be able to easily access the train, and that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you for that comment and the concern.
Yes, thank you. Hi, my name is Joel Arbeitman from the Ashland Bike Club. That's A-R-B-E-I-T-M-A-N. First and foremost, I really want to thank the engineering team and Mass DOT for their responsiveness to my earlier comments about some type of, I'm going to call it a Boden Lane to crosswalk on 135 connector. I think that's critically important to get bicycles and pedestrians out of the intersection of Boden and 135. I want to talk briefly about this car business. It's not a focus that I have, but I'm going to focus on the danger that cars present. These folks are worried about kids, as they rightly should be, in front yards and soccer fields and so on. I want to talk about what you're doing to the bike riders here. I'm very concerned about this design. What's wrong with it? The first problem is that the striped buffer that shows a blank space between the car and the bike rider is not an appropriate width. And why is that? Because last April 1st or 2nd, Governor Baker's new law went into effect that mandates a 4-foot safe passing zone, minimum 4-foot zone. That buffer is under 4 feet. It's only 4 inches, but you would think that at a minimum it should meet the safety requirement, and it does not. Secondly, that bike rider on the right there, the guy closest to the car, is riding uphill. In the Ashland Bike Club, we have expert road cyclists. Most people are not. Kids come, people who are out for a recreational ride come, and they're going uphill. If you think they should be able to ride in a straight line right along that striped buffer there, they will not be able to. They're going to weave a little bit. The next thing is you're putting a northbound bike lane adjacent to the cars with whatever the buffer is. And if there is an impact there, because that's non-standard. Normally, the bike lane would be over on the right-hand side of the road. Because it's non-standard, an impact that will happen, sadly, is going to be accumulative. You're going to take the speed of the bicycle, whatever it is, say 10, 15 miles an hour, whatever it might be, and a 25 mile an hour if they obey the speed limit car, and you add the two together, that's 40 miles an hour. If you have the bike lane going the other way, which is what the vulnerable road user law envisioned when they gave a 4-foot minimum passing distance. Those two vehicles were traveling in the same direction. An impact there, you subtract the speed of the bike rider from the speed of the car and take the net. It's much slower impact speed. This is much more dangerous what you're doing. So what am I asking for? I'm saying, yep, if these people want to get the cars out of there and take care of us bicycle riders who are just trying to save on gas and climate, greenhouse gases to get to the train station, I'm with them. Just trying to think if I had any other points on this. The last thing, I sent you an email today, and I think it would be good to look at that. I'm trying to have the bike lanes end a little bit farther up the bridge than and really keeping bikes away from turning vehicles at that intersection. So I think that would be helpful. Okay, that's enough. There's other factors, but you can read that in the details. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, I did get your email today, and we'll provide you a formal response to that. But just to some of your earlier points, so this proposed bridge, the road surface width, there's 13 plus feet of it are dedicated to bicycle and 10 feet to the car. So, we think we did the best that we could to address, bicycle concerns. We do acknowledge that the alignment or the orientation of the bicyclists going against traffic, the closest bike lane, if you will. However, that was looked at quite in detail, and it involved how to bring the bicyclists into the 135 intersection and to the station in a manner that was safe, or there was no crisscrossing of the bikes and pedestrians. But I'll let Keith talk a little bit about that. He's more in tune to that.
So yeah, I'll get back to the portion that you referenced down at the southerly end. We did go back and forth with several different options. We reviewed your very well put together email and sketches from November of 2022. One of the concerns we did have was the potential conflicts between bikes entering the sidewalk area with people that are walking on the sidewalk. So what we are proposing right now, and this is still, as I say, a work in progress, is to bring the bikes around to the wheelchair ramp at the crossing, and then at that point, they can join at the top of the ramp, and then that's where the path width goes back to 10 feet, and then they have the 10-foot connection to the Hawk Signal crossing. And we acknowledge the points you're making about the contraflow bike lane. That was something we wrestled with extensively in the earlier phases of the design, whether or not to even provide two-way bike service. And it was something that we were encouraged to provide the two-way versus just restricting bike traffic in one direction. Going with a more conventional design where the bikes would be on in this case, it's a one-way street, so there's no way you're going to get northbound bikes to not conflict with southbound cars. But even if we did separate them out somehow, it just makes the road and the bridge wider. So that's another issue with that. But we've got your email. I read it, reviewed it. We need some time to think it through and see what we can do to incorporate your suggestions further.
Hi, I'm Karen Edwards. I may be the only one from the other side of the bridge, so I do have a couple questions. I'm a frequent walker over the bridge coming this way and obviously going back. So 2 questions about safety. I know we talked about the blinking stop sign, which I think is great, but that intersection at Tamarack and Burning Tree and Boden, I do wonder about lights at that intersection because at night it is very dangerous trying to cross there, and now that there'll be more cars and people not stopping at the stop signs, I do wonder about that. And then at the other end of the 5-on-35, I do remember from the past, you would get to the bottom and there were cars going in both directions trying to, get out, and there's no light at the other end. So I do wonder if there's any consideration on what might be done to help with traffic control at the other end.
Okay, so starting at the northerly end, what we're right now, what we're proposing is just a more conventional intersection with the crossing. I think the idea of lighting the intersection up, I assume you're talking about street lights, right? Not traffic signal lights, right?
You cannot see people when you drive up in there.
Right, but you're not talking about a red, yellow, green signal light. You're talking about overhead lights to illuminate the intersection better. That is something that we can consider as we develop the design and we do the utility relocations. Because that comes with, typically the Cobra heads are on top at the utility pole. So that is definitely something that can be considered and potentially incorporated into this design. On the southerly end, the proposal is for the stop condition, 1 lane. There's no split for multiple lanes. I think that's what the impression I got, that people naturally form 2 lanes. Yeah.
And nobody would let anybody out.
Right.
Between 5 and 6 o'clock.
So that's, again, where and I know it's striping, but it is striped with the buffer and the bike lanes and the single lane for exiting traffic. And the simple fact is that the intersection itself would not meet the warrants for a traffic signal. So in order to put in a traffic signal, you have to meet a certain set of warrants, criteria. Otherwise, we'd be inclined to put up signals everywhere. So that's the reason for no additional traffic control at the intersection. And again, the intent is to at least provide this outlet path to the crossing for the pedestrians, bicyclists.
Thank you, David Coffey. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 2, a resident of Ranger Road, which is a block or 2 up from the bridge. I actually, my neighbors welcome the bridge being reopened. I know that will bother some people, but ever since the bridge closed to vehicular traffic, Ranger Road, Burning Tree have won the traffic, people cutting across to get to Mill Street. So for everybody's gain, there's somebody else's loss. Also, the additional traffic on Mill Street is choking that street, for lack of a better word. Not just at rush hour, where it backs up all the way from the light at 135 up to the Kennedy School, but even at 2 o'clock when the school is getting out, mornings when people have dropped off the kids and heading down. So to alleviate the traffic on Mill Street, many of us welcome the idea that will be opened up. That being said, I also share my neighbor's concerns. I don't know if it's possible to put a Jersey barrier at the northern end of the bridge to alleviate the splitting of the traffic. I know you couldn't do anything up the middle because of snow removal. So that would certainly, but if you can do a Jersey barrier there, perhaps at least that'll send out the message that it's only one width going up. I don't see any mention there of lighting. I assume there'll be some lighting, but I never like to assume anything. And I know there's a representative from the town here, so perhaps they can speak about possible improvements at the intersection of Boden, Tamarack, and Burning Tree. I don't know if a speed bump is feasible to slow people down at that stop sign also, or any other additions that can be made to make it safer for the people going, for the community and for the pedestrians there. But I'd like to know if that can be addressed at some point. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, sure.
Okay, so getting back to the point about the lighting, and I think we're going to build off of that. I know that we did talk about additional lighting down on the southerly end of the project during our utility site walk in coordination with the utility owners in the town. So we're hearing the concerns relative to illumination of the area. In terms of traffic calming and things like speed bumps, all of this is something that could potentially be incorporated, possibly even neck downs and things like that that would compress the opening at the intersection, also making for a shorter crossing. Those are all things that we do consider. There's always a functionality to it that gets impacted, but in this case, that's a potential solution that when we talk about traffic calming, that's a possible way to alleviate some of the speed, especially for the people first entering the Boden Lane, coming off of the northern stretch of Boden Lane and at that intersection. Speed bumps are a little bit tougher because it's a maintenance. It becomes more of a maintenance issue, as does the barrier, and you brought up the snow removal. All of these things are challenges to incorporate into a design because of the future maintenance that they burden the town with. So that's something that we will consider to discuss with the town as this design progresses and with the department, and see what we can do to try to address some of the speed concerns that everybody has mentioned here.
So, hi everyone, I'm your neighbor. I also work for the town. So, as MassDOT moves forward with their design from 25% and continues to move forward based on their designs and what they do for traffic calming, we can certainly take a look at that intersection as well to see if there's any enhancements we can do based on the work that they're doing as they progress forward into the 75% design.
Right, I have a few points. First of all, as far as the truck exclusion, I want to point out that there is a heavy vehicle exclusion on Hartford Street that is currently in place. So without taking Hartford Street, you can't really get a truck over to here, I mean, unless you're from the neighborhood. So as long as that's enforced, I think that'll take care of a lot of the concerns about trucks. Now, obviously, the police are out there a lot hanging out by St. Linus, so might need continued enforcement just to make sure, because they do it every once in a while and have somebody who's coming down Hartford Street that shouldn't be. A couple other points I think I'd like to, I guess, maybe request more than ask a question. The buffer right now, I would request if it could be a landscape buffer, because with it being striped, it's going to be visually very open. So, I mean, a driver is going to see 25 feet or so of open pavement. It just, people tend to go a little faster. Maybe landscape it. If we could have some kind of higher plantings, I think that'll help reduce speeding on the road. It'll look a lot more like a slow speed road. Also, obviously not on the bridge itself, because you're not going to go grass on the bridge. But that's 50 feet out of, about 600-foot section. That'll also probably help protect us a little bit over when you get to 135, because if we just have striping, cars are going to line up in 2 lanes, on top of the bike lane. I don't think we want that. So we're going to, with that landscape buffer, I think it's going to keep cars into 1 lane like they should. I think a lot of that traffic tends to be right turns. If you're going to take a left, I think most people like to go out on Mill Street to take it at the traffic light there. And I guess, well, at the crosswalk over by the intersection near Tamarack, obviously you'd have to look at drainage, but I was wondering if you could look at maybe doing some kind of raised crosswalk there. We got quite a bit of grade there, so I don't know if that works. It might not. And since we mentioned street lighting around there, mean, there's a lot of residential stuff right there, so might be more pedestrian scale lighting might be kind of appropriate at that. Since we're talking about, you know, crosswalk where we're trying to highlight the pedestrians, really not, rather than just put light for everything. So, thanks.
Thank you for your suggestion.
Hi, I'm Stacy Cogsall, Coggeshall. I live at 9 Millbrook, which is on the corner of Millbrook and Brookdale. Brookdale also becomes a huge cut through from Hartford to the bridge, and when people are trying to make the trains in the morning, it is very dangerous for school kids who are standing out on the corners waiting for the buses. I've seen cars cut up over the curves on the sidewalks, trying to make the corners, trying to make the trains. So it's not necessarily about the bridge, but what are we gonna do? I mean, just like our friend on Ranger, like something's gonna be done about monitoring the traffic in these neighborhoods. These cars go 60 miles an hour down these roads, and it's just unsafe.
Yeah.
You know, we definitely appreciate, you know, your concerns and safety. That's a, you know, scary anecdote that you just described. What it, you know, primarily comes down to, maybe like in this case, is, you know, continued enforcement to that area where it's, you know, people are ticketed and it has an effect for future violators. You know, but that's, you know, we definitely hear what you're saying, and you know, you could, you know, discuss it with your local officials to see if they could, you know, increase monitoring. But thank you for your comment.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jasmine Haq Ahmed, HAQUE-AHMED. I live on Tamarack Road, 14 Tamarack. So before pandemic, I used to work healthcare shifts, like 3 to 11, so I'd come home at like midnight, 1 a.m. I noticed that a lot of young people used to go the wrong way over the Boden Lane Bridge as a cut through, and there was no monitoring, no prevention. Maybe coming from the Wendy's, but they would come through the wrong way on the one-way road. And that's something that I saw a lot coming home late night, and it would happen in the summertime. So I don't know in terms of like the speed bumps or making sure that it's one-way enforceable so that there's no incentive for cars to come the wrong way, because it's an easy cut through, especially late night if you left your car in the parking lot, to come over the bridge the wrong way. The second thing is when pandemic happened and the bridge closed, a lot of individuals were jumping into my backyard to climb the fence to cut through. So safety was an issue when the bridge was closed and people were coming out of the woodwork trying to get home. I get it, but they were jumping the fences into our backyards when the bridge was closed. And the last thing is, as a commuter now, besides driving, I work in the city now, I think it's awful for wheelchairs, pedestrians. That bridge is not iced. There's no snow shoveling, no maintenance. When the leaves come down, it's slick. As an able, mobile person, that's a pretty dangerous trek down the road. Like, I have to go with my hikers and have to have a plan for getting down the bridge at the incline that it's currently at. So I hope that whatever we do going forward, it's an improvement in terms of safety and just to make the design better. Like, come on, MIT is here. We can do better. So those are my comments.
Thank you. All right, yeah.
Marlene Custodio, Custodio. I live at 178 Boden Lane, which is the straightaway part right across the street. I think that the day the bridge opens, we're gonna have like a Filene's Basement bridal frenzy. The fact is there are no lights. They're avoiding Mill Street, Speen Street, and Bishop Street. They're gonna cut through Boden Lane. Now on Boden Lane, for 6 months a year, we have cars all the way up to Hartford Street because of soccer. As it is, those cars take up a lot of road space and half the sidewalk, which they should not be parked on the sidewalk. So should they park on the road, you now have more traffic entering Boden Lane from Hartford Street, and it's kind of like blind corners up there during 6 months of the year, all hours of the day, especially on the weekends. I've seen children have balls go out in the street and no car stops, they drive over the balls. I've seen people hit the light for the crosswalk, cars don't stop. I've tried to back into my driveway, I can't tell you how many times I've been hit. I've tried to pack my RV into the driveway, and this is with the bridge closed and open. I get people honking at me like I've done something wrong. I want to point out too, I understand you guys have a job to do, and it is a hard job and a lot of work. I've lived on the street for 63 years. I've seen that bridge two-way, one-way, open and closed. I've witnessed 6 accidents in front of my house, one of which somebody died, and one, my husband, who had a near-death experience from people who turn onto Boden Lane from Hartford Street and see how fast they can go in the straightaway. Now, I know there's more accidents after the curve in the road, and those are dependent on the speed at which they go. There's a lot that goes on Boden Lane. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but I've seen it, I've lived it, and I'm still seeing it. I can't get in and out of the driveway, I can't even cross the street, so you can only imagine all the other people in the neighborhood with strollers, dogs. Our dog got killed in front of our house because of the traffic. Having said all that, like you said, this is probably gonna go through. I don't understand the bicycle. I have no offense, no disrespect or anything for the bicyclists, but I don't know, in 63 years, I see 1 bike a day or something. I'm not really sure the purpose of the two-way lane. I'm concerned 3 years after you build this bridge, we're gonna hear about a two-way bridge, because somewhere along the line, that's gonna be where you're going. Why? Because you're building a new apartment complex over at the West Natick station. You've got people that only want to use Boden Lane to go south. There is nowhere at the end of Boden Lane. It's a right-hand turn. At least at the end of Mill Street, you might be crossing over to further go. Speen Street, you're crossing over, further to go. So either way, the bridge should be closed and it should be walkway. I get it, and it would be so much safer having a recreational area here. We're a much denser street than Speen and Mill Street and Bishop. However, you're gonna open the bridge. That is not necessary. You do not need to have that kind of width as a bridge. You're just looking for more trouble, and we as neighbors are looking for more problems. So I am totally concerned with the safety. I've also brought about, you're talking about a burden on the town should you put speed bumps. I'm sorry, every one of these crosswalks should be raised crosswalks, and then maybe the people that choose to cut through on Boden Lane have to slow down, and maybe they won't like that, and they'll go in another way, and that's just the consequences. But to raise speed limits, what kind of burden is it when some kid gets hit? That's what I want to know. What kind of a burden will it be? Other towns have them just for that purpose, to slow the traffic down. I'll go no further, thank you.
Gail Stahl, S-T-A-H-L, again, a Boden Lane resident for over 25 years. I wanted to follow up on what Marlene said. The big concern here tonight, the main concern seems to be about safety. And if it's really about safety, then the bridge needs to be closed to any vehicle traffic. We have seen enough on this road. And as far as the weight limit on this bridge, nobody can answer my question. And if it is going to be acceptable for commercial vehicles, it's going to be acceptable on Hartford Street, because there's no other way to get to Boden Lane. So I just want to point out, and I will reiterate what Marlene and some others have said, that we are a very thickly settled neighborhood. We are unlike Mill, we are unlike Speen, and we are unlike Bishop. We're very thickly settled. We have lots of children. We have 2 temples, people walking, dog walkers, lots of activity. And it would be a safety hazard to open this bridge up to vehicle traffic. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
think we have a couple more, and then we'll open it up to follow-up questions.
Hello, my name is Yelena Rosen, R-O-S-E-N. I live at 1 Tamarack Road, which is facing the bridge, so on the corner of Boden and Tamarack. We moved here 4 years ago, so we've never seen the bridge open to traffic, and quite literally horrifies me because we see who comes over the bridge, pedestrians, kids bike riding to here, to Cole Center, to the parks, to the soccer fields. The other concern is when pedestrians come off the bridge there onto Boden, that sidewalk doesn't even connect, and then it ends and people have to cross over Boden. If there's constant traffic going over and trucks and people speeding, as people who have lived here for many, many years are saying, we've clearly never experienced, but people don't stop at that stop sign, let alone if they can get over the bridge. We walk our dogs in and out of the neighborhood. You have to, there's only sidewalks on one side of Boden. You constantly have to cross over. So the town has to consider that. If there's going to be such traffic, people are constantly going to be crossing over Boden. There's going to be accidents and someone's going to be in a very bad position. So bikes and pedestrians coming over the bridge onto Boden have to cross over immediately. Because that sidewalk, A, doesn't connect by the little bridge. It gets flooded, muddy, and in the winter, it doesn't exist. So.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, but so for our project, the project limits that are highlighted on the plan, the pedestrian safety as compared to prior to it getting hit, it's 100% safer. There's going to be a curbing with an 18-inch bridge rail separating the sidewalk from any sort of vehicular traffic. So that stretch is going to be greatly improved. And I think, that was the only other thing. I don't know if you had anything to add to that. Or...
One thing I did want to mention is that we are trying to put in this connection here to, right now it's an uncontrolled crossing. There's no crosswalk, there's no sidewalk on the receiving side, on the east side of Boden Lane. So we are trying to install visual cues at least to motorists, and as I said, the high visibility markings to help identify the fact that there may be pedestrians in this crosswalk. Right now, there's nothing there and obviously there's no cars there either. But this is a more conventional technique to try and provide visual cues to motorists that there may be pedestrians in the crossing. Obviously, stop sign. And one other thing, this gets back to one of the previous comments too. On the walkway itself, there's also a proposed railing that will address some of the concerns raised by the grade of the sidewalk for people with disabilities and wheelchairs, that they have a handle to hold on to as they're going downhill to avoid losing control while they're on the sidewalk. So that's another pedestrian or sidewalk improvement incorporated into the project.
Hi, Kat Monahan, M-O-N-A-H-A-N. I live on Beaver Dam Road. I rode my bike here. I want to ask some questions, but I also want to give some comment. I'm going to email most of it. I want to remind all my neighbors here that I went to the safety committee meeting this morning. They confirmed that there are no speed bumps in the town of Natick, and they don't plan for speed bumps to ever be in the town of Natick. So please don't plan on that being a possibility in our environment. Related to that, there is no motivation or capacity for traffic enforcement for the roads that we do have. So there will be no enforcement for this in 2027 when it's open. Here's 3 cars that weigh over 5,000 pounds, which is the limit for Arthur Street. A Tesla Model X, a Lucid Air, and a Rivian truck. So if you see any of those on Hartford Street or coming down Boden Lane, they're too heavy. Here's my question. Could you provide us with the previous total width of the bridge and the proposed total width of the bridge? That was the first question. Second question. Can you repeat the projected total cost and the amount of federal funding? Because I saw a previous non-federally funded project estimate of about $8.5 million. And then comment, I think it's worth doing this safely, even if it means that we have to use alternate funding sources and wait another 7 years. If vehicles are that important to you, then do it at grade and make them wait for trains. End of comment, but I'd love answers to the questions.
So the first question with regard to the widths, the current and the original width, let Keith talk to that. But with regard to the cost, as stated earlier, right now the estimated construction cost is $11 million, where Federal Highway Administration would fund 80% of that, and Mass DOT, the state, would fund 20% of that. Someone had made a comment earlier that they said that we had answered the question with regard to the bridge, what kind of trucks can be supported by the bridge, and we did answer that question, but I'll clarify it again. As Keith had mentioned, when we design a new bridge, it's designed for the whatever truck size is allowed for the particular road. So we don't design bridges that are inadequate for what they need to carry. So, just wanted to clarify that. And with regard to the widths, the proposed bridge is going to be wider than what the bridge that got hit was, and the width of that was a result of trying to provide bike accommodations to achieve the correct width on a sidewalk, and to reduce the profile, flatten it out a little bit, or improve the profile of the road as much possible. So I'll just let Keith quickly just talk to the actual width numbers, and we'll move on to the next question.
Okay, so this is the width of or a snapshot of the original bridge, which had, and I'm just referring to curb width, 12 foot 4 inch curb to curb, and then a 5 foot sidewalk, so 17 foot 4 inches on the existing bridge. And then the proposed bridge has a 2 foot shoulder, 10 foot travel lane, 12 feet, 3 foot 8 inch stripe buffer. So let's call that, we'll call that 4 feet. So 16 feet, 26, and then a 1 foot shoulder, 27 feet to the railing, and then an 18 inch railing, and then an 8 foot sidewalk.
Before I make my other comment, could you just give us the total on that?
So, when was?
Okay, so the road before before being taken out, 12 foot 4 inches, 5 foot sidewalk, so 17 foot 4 inches. Okay, I'm gonna go through it again, because the out to out width is 39 feet, but that includes the bridge railing. I don't think that's what you're asking.
We're going from 17 feet to 39 feet is what you're saying.
No, you're going from 17 feet. If you want to go to the travel way, it's 2, 10, 12, 16, 26, 27. In travel way. And then the sidewalk is 8 feet. So 35 feet.
35 versus 17, you're doubling the width of the bridge.
Correct.
Yeah.
Could I have my,
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I have a mic.
just as a comment on the width question, and to one of these ladies over here, I think we will see a double lane bridge with this kind of construction, which I agree with you, is totally unnecessary and totally unwanted. I think in the early presentation, you said the sidewalk was 8 feet. There's not a sidewalk in this area that's 8 feet wide. So I see no reason for that. And to the many comments that have been made about the bicycle and the pedestrian walking on the bridge, they all point back and support my first comment, and that is build a path right along the parallel to the bridge between Tamarack and the backside of the train platform. You could easily build that sidewalk in about 30 days. And then during your 18 months of construction, you don't have to worry about running a truck to carry passengers from the station to someplace else while you're going under bridge construction. You don't have to make special arrangements for connecting the two sides of the bridge for pedestrian traffic. You have the sidewalk in place already. The sidewalk is not going to be that expensive. You're talking about an $11 million bridge. You don't need to build it 27 feet wide or whatever it is. You can get rid of the sidewalk, get rid of the bicycle paths, put a sign in the front of the roadway saying all passenger, all pedestrian, and all bicycle traffic this way, and you point to the lane. And that way you eliminate an awful lot of traffic, a lot of safety issues. And it makes your construction costs considerably less. You can make it a much more narrow bridge. You can build it faster, and you don't need an elevator from the MTA.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, but if we propose a bridge without sidewalks and proper pedestrian and bike accommodations, you don't have a project, so I just wanted to point that out.
I guess I didn't make any impression.
First of all, just to put in a word for us bike riders, we are the good guys on the road. Some of us aren't very courteous and we use certain finger gestures that are not always well received, but we are not cars speeding through your neighborhoods. We are not crushing soccer balls in the street, and we are not taking our cars pumping fossil fuel greenhouse gases into the air. We should do all, and this is state policy. They have a thing called complete streets, and when they talk about mandates and they really need to have the pedestrian access and the bike lanes, that's what is behind the policy. One comment I heard a couple of times made by some of you up front that is very concerning to me. I used to be a systems analyst. Like we look at pie in the sky crazy things, and then we narrow down our design. And I keep hearing this theme about our project is limited in scope to the bridge. It's not that we won't have a conversation with the MBTA, someone mentioned. You've got to look beyond that. There are so many integrated safety features. You talk about lighting on the side streets. I want to talk about bicycles coming from Framingham down 135, who really, it would be great if they could use the existing crosswalk and traffic signal that's in place already at the entrance to the T station, to go to the T station or to go up Boden Lane. How are they going to do that? I mean, there's no design for that. I envision some type of jug handle to come off the sidewalk coming eastbound on 135 and then crossing in the crosswalk. It's not part of what you're doing, but it should be. It would be great if you could expand the scope, not just of the project, but at least in the dialogue that you're having with other agencies, the town of Natick officials, and so on, to have a broader vision than just the narrowness of the bridge. One last point, which I forgot to make before, but I'm going to make it now. If we could go back to that picture showing the segregation of the road components, is that something that's easy?
Sorry, you're making.
I just did that to give you some exercise. What I didn't say before, and it addresses a lot of the concerns, and I can't speak to whether in 20 years they're gonna throw away the bike lane and have double width traffic on the bridge. I mean, is that a risk? It may be. From a bike riding perspective though, when I was talking about the head-on contra lane impact, doubling the, increasing the speed of the impact, what I failed to call for and am calling for, and it would eliminate cars cheating and passing and stealing a little bit of the striped open area there and the bike lanes, is exactly the kind of safety that you've already envisioned for the pedestrians. A separated bike lane, put a fence up. And if you're telling me that you're gonna be snow plowing the sidewalk, then snow plow the bike lane also. Don't explain to me that, well, how would we clear the snow? Do it however you're gonna do it on the sidewalk, do it in the bike lane. So with a fence there, cars are not gonna be cheating or they're gonna be crashing into a barrier. And it seems to me, given the contra flow, which is a great phrase you used before, that this is really a warranted situation. And that as vulnerable road users, we need that kind of barrier, given the opposing traffic, given the uphill, given the state 4-foot vulnerable road user law, that I think you need to look at more safety protection for the bike lane. Thank you.
So, not everyone that uses a sidewalk can ride a bike. So, that being said, it's kind of obvious that's what we need to start with meeting the requirements for. But at the same time, we understand that, your email today was looking for some sort of physical barrier on the roadway. And just having quickly looked at that would result in a wider bridge, which would result in right-of-way impacts, private property, and we tried to do the best with that 3.5-foot buffer in between the travel lane and the bike lane to address safety concerns for bicyclists. So.
I just want to thank you for those comments. Mass DOT will continue to work with the town and proponents for other projects where we can provide connectivity for all users, future projects in the area.
Terrible.
Hello. First of all, I'm terrible at this, so let me just precursor to this. My name is Rick Isabel. I live on Boden Lane. For those that caught me on your ring camera this morning, handing out flyers, I'm the guy. It's really encouraging to see sort of a number of people I recognize, many I don't, but just to see sort of the community here come out tonight in support of this project. So thank you to all the residents, neighbors, whether you're for or against the bridge. I think the collaboration is extremely healthy. Thanks to the Mass DOT. I feel like this is one of those acceptance speeches, right? But no, truly, this is a lot of work. It's encouraging to see the thought that went into the project. However, my concern, and it's really nothing that needs to be followed up, is just for the record, is the concern I have. I've lived here for a number of years. I've done more traffic studies than I care to admit, because my wife thinks I'm beyond crazy. I presented to the town of Natick when the bridge was open pre-2019. I can tell you statistics that over 75% of the traffic that traverses down Boden Lane pre-19 during rush hour was traffic that was destined for Framingham. So for folks on Mill or the town, or for the selectmen that feel like, hey, opening Boden is going to magically displace traffic on Mill Street, I can tell you, and I'll provide the stats, that's not the case. That traffic, and I've done post studies, counting cars with multiple people, that traffic's gonna just, has been traversing down Hartford onto Bishop. So the traffic that's traversing Mill Street, although I do feel sorry for those cars that do come across the neighborhoods to Mill, but from a Mill perspective, my concern is we haven't done any post-analysis on traffic, right? And I get that's not the Mass DOT's position here, right? You guys have a project, the project has a defined scope, right? That scope is to build a bridge. However, what we're not considering is the safety. And I'll go on record, I think I went on record in the town, which is to say, look, when the first accident happens and it involves a child, right? I'm going on record here that I'm opposed to this project, Mass DOT, I'm here to voice that this will happen. There will be an accident. There have been accidents in the past, and we're basically increasing the chance of an accident involving a child significantly by opening this bridge. And if that's a risk that, look, Mass DOT is willing to set, then we're on record today. So when that happens and that litigation takes place, right, all of you, all of the Mass DOT is on record that this is a concern. This is a high probability it's going to happen. Post-2019, the fields have increased. The usage has increased significantly, right? And that's the concern, is that we can say, well, pre-2019, we had the traffic, people survived back then, but, Framingham, the volume, the number of houses, the number of high-rises has increased significantly, right? So what we may have expected in the volume of thousands of cars during rush hour on Boden Lane is only going to double and triple. So my concern here is safety. I do appreciate all the neighbors coming out. My vote is do not open the Boden Lane Bridge. There is no reason for it. And by the way, safety, I did talk to the fire department in Natick. I can tell you there is not a concern I've heard of in talking to the fire department that Boden Lane has been closed since 2019. So for folks to say, well, it's a traffic displacement issue, it's a safety issue, I'd like to see hard facts that someone's actually done some statistics and not just sort of rub and stamping something to make some constituents happy. So, thank you.
Ray Bergman, 32 Virginia Road, spelled B-E-R-G-G-R-E-N. One thing nobody's brought up is with the increased width of the bridge from roughly 17 feet to 37 feet, what does this do to the roadway? Are you going to be engaged in a land taking to increase the width of the roadway by 10 feet and take adjacent neighbors' land? If you were to keep the bridge at roughly the same width by not adding all these bike lanes and not adding all this extra sidewalk area and build the trail like I suggested several times, you wouldn't need to widen the roadway and take land from people who live adjacent to the roadway. So the question is, what are you going to do about land taking for the roadway?
So this project involves temporary and easements, which is a temporary use of someone's property, and a small amount of permanent easement, which is not taking someone's property such that they don't live there anymore, but it's using a portion of the land for the roadway or the bridge. So, that is the case. I just wanted to answer that for you. But there is a process where they're awarded fair market value and compensation for the easement that we would require, and that's how we address that.
Carol Anderson. To follow up on my question about the compelling reasons for the bridge to be reopened to auto traffic, I was somewhat insulted by your answer. Because we are the stakeholders. I don't know who the stakeholders are that you were referring to. The people here are speaking very loud and clear. The impact to our neighborhood will be huge. I'm very concerned about young children who do not know what traffic is on this street. They have been brought up and I've watched them. I've been in the neighborhood for 45 years, so I have seen every sort of traffic on Boden Lane. And there are a whole generation of children that have become used to just basically walking down the middle of the street, biking up the street the wrong way, not using the crosswalk because they don't see traffic, so they don't see a reason for pushing the button. And there's a learning curve for children. And in that learning curve, it's going to change their neighborhood. It will not be the neighborhood that they've grown up with, that they've known since they were toddlers or 6-year-old or 7-year-old. They have learned a certain type of behavior, and they are going to have to unlearn that behavior and learn a new one. And in that time, I am very fearful of what can happen. Also at the top of Boden Lane and Hartford Street, it's very difficult to make a left-hand turn at rush hour because the traffic heading east comes at you on a curve and it's very deceiving. There were large numbers of accidents at that intersection prior to the bridge closing. I don't know what the statistics are. The number of accidents that I have physically heard when at my home and sirens for the top of that hill have decreased significantly. I don't know what the statistics actually are. So saying that there's a compelling reason to reopen the bridge, I don't see it.
Do we have any more?
Hi, Kevin Beltis, B-E-L-T-I-S, 184 Boden Lane, right across the street from the soccer fields. To the gentleman's point, since these soccer fields have been rebuilt, the traffic use has skyrocketed in the past few years. And frankly, as a neighbor, I'd love to see it. Love to see the kids using it. But what I see a lot of is kids coming from the Greenleaf Street, crossing the street really without looking. And there's a high incident, there's gonna be accidents. Because when that bridge opens, the traffic going to either the train station or the village apartments and condominiums is going to increase significantly. To the gentleman's point about the bike being the wrong direction, you haven't shown the grade or elevation view of your project. On either side, that bridge is elevated. A car coming up from one side heading to the north, and from the south, and a bike coming up from the north are not going to see each other until they hit that bridge. And that's going to get an accident. There are going to be people taken out by that. And I don't think you're considered. I think you're being naive. To the gentleman's comment about the table, we've asked you several times about what the gross vehicle weight is, and you've simply said, well, it's based on what the current usage is. Please be clear with us. Is it 5,000 gross vehicle weight, since that's what's on Hartford Street, and that's what's to be maintained, or do you think you're going to increase it? And a follow-up question to the other thing is, also, if either you're being naive or disingenuous with us, when you say that that lane, that one-lane bridge is not going to become two at some point, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I apologize, but I've got a feel that somewhere during this project, you guys are going, oh, and then in the future, you can make this 2 lanes.
Absolutely.
I know that discussion is happening. And again, I think you're being disingenuous with us and not being forthright with that potential conflict. Thank you.
I'll give the microphone to Laura, the bridge engineer, to answer the weight question again. But the second point that you made with regard to us opening it up to 2 lanes. What motive would we have to opening it up to 2 lanes? We're fixing the bridge, we're the Mass DOT, and we're fixing a bridge that was damaged. We don't have a motivation to sneakily add lanes in the future. That just doesn't make any sense at all. So, Laura, could you talk about the way?
You've directed a question to me, I'll answer. You do.
Laura's good. Excuse me,
You've asked
sir.
me a
For this,
question.
we have a verbatim testimony transcript. They can't hear you if you don't have the microphone.
Give them the microphone.
Okay, so when we design a bridge, we have to design it per
We can't hear
Ashton.
you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. When we design a bridge, we are required to design it per AASHTO, which is the American Association of State and Highway Transportation Officials weight limits, which is an HL 93 truck. It weighs 72 kips total.
What's that? In pounds, what is that? In tons?
Kip is 1,000 kilopounds. Yeah, 1,000 pounds.
So repeat that again, please? And please
Sorry.
speak up.
Okay, the weight of an HL 93 truck is 72 kips, which is a kilopound, so 72,000 pounds.
So the bridge is built for 72,000 pounds is what you're saying, capability? That. What is it now?
Right now, it's a pedestrian bridge, so
No, before.
the original
before,
bridge.
yeah, 2019.
I don't remember if it was posted. It should have been designed similarly. The bridge will need to carry emergency vehicles.
No, before, 2019. No,
Yeah.
no emergency.
It would have had to have been designed, I would have to look up when it was designed, what year, to know exactly what the pound it was designed for. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Well, we would like to know that. Is there any way we can get that information?
It wasn't designed for much.
If you can submit a question and we can
Okay,
respond to that
okay,
in writing
yeah.
then.
Okay.
Oh, I did want to respond to your question about the profile of the roadway and the site distance. That's another geometric design criteria that we have to meet with our design. We have plans right over here. After this hearing, we can sit and take a look at them, and we can show you what the stopping site distance is across the bridge based on this new design.
You asked me a direct question, so if I don't mind. You see, you asked the question, what reason would you have to do a design for 2 ways? Because it makes sense that it could happen in the future? I understand the gentleman's comment about use of bicycles, and that's great. The current city law does allow for bike lanes to share the road. There's a share the road law. There's no reason to have 2 sets for that purpose. Again, I think this is over-designed for what we currently have, and God knows that, we're doing quite well with a single-lane bridge, and to open it up beyond that, you are asking for trouble. That's all it is. Thank you.
Including 24 Porter Road. This is kind of maybe clarification, and I think we're also on the same page. Now, the bridge is owned by MassDOT, correct? Or is it MBTA? MassDOT. But the road is going to be still going to be town meeting. So I think any changes to two-way would have to be approved by the town meeting. And I think people might disagree about one direction if we allow southbound, but I think everybody in this room agrees that it should never be open for two-way traffic. So I think just, I guess, get that on the record there. But that will have to be, I guess, the town will do that if they were to do that. So hopefully they never do that.
Carol Anderson, A-N-D-E-R-S-O-N. I don't think if the bridge goes through, is there going to be left and right hand turns onto Route 135? Because when the bridge was hit, there was only a right hand turn allowed. There was no left hand turn allowed.
Yes.
And at this time, we are not restricting left turns. However, that is a comment that we have now on record. It wasn't, it's another one of those details that's a final design detail, and we will explore that. That's a good question, and we will look into that with the town and with the Department of Transportation's traffic section. And what I would encourage you to submit that as a question as well, and we will provide you with a formal response. So, but to answer your question, right now, it's not restricted. We will look into it.
Do we have?
Just one more. Just curious, I have one final question. With whatever happens with this bridge and any kind of construction, with construction vehicles going up and down this road and their very extreme heavy weight, is there going to be any repairs to Boden Lane with new paving?
So the project limits is shown on the plan, the colored section will include at the end of the project, a final paving effort for the limits of the project.
What's that? Is that all of Boden Lane or just?
No, just
From Burning Tree Road to Route 135.
So the damage that the trucks do on Boden Lane, it's up to town of Natick to repair?
No, it will be part of this project.
No, from Hartford to.
The whole
Hartford
stretch
to
of
Boden,
street, so it's like no commercial vehicles are allowed on the street, but DOT vehicles in this case are being allowed on the street
For construction.
for construction purposes.
So for the limit of the project, it includes a repaved final cross pavement placement as part of the project. For the length of the project. For the length of the project, from here at Tamarack Road to 135.
No, it's not.
So is the DOT planning on using the road that allows commercial vehicles access to the project, which is what?
You have to speak up, I don't know. You have to speak up because I don't know if they can hear you.
My name is Sean Hart, H-A-R-T. I live at 202 Boden Lane. It's the second house in from Hartford Street on the right. I have a 2-year-old son. He just turned 2 days ago. The biggest concern with me in this whole project, honestly, is the safety of my child. Both in his neighborhood, when he's playing soccer across the street, when he gets to that age, when we're at the playground, when we're walking to pick up mom at the train. It seems like a lot of this talk and a lot of the rhetoric coming from your end is about budget and about stakeholders and about money. How much of this project is about money and how much is it about providing a safe transportation for the people of the neighborhood to the train and protecting the safety of the people in the neighborhood? And I guess the other part of what I was trying to speak on before is if commercial vehicles are excluded from Boden Lane due to weight, and commercial vehicles from the DOT and whatever company you do hire to do this project do need access to your project site, will they be using 135, which is designed for commercial vehicles and the weight, which would not erode the pavement on the rest of Boden Lane outside of your project?
So the construction details and the traffic management during construction will be developed as we get into final design. As far as where the construction vehicles would come to fix the bridge, again, they would come the roadway routes that we would specify. We wouldn't have them go through a residential neighborhood when there's a more appropriate road that can address what they're going to do. And then,
Typically, what's done with construction projects is there is a trucking route that is submitted as a contractor submittal in the process, and that would be something that would be reviewed. And if it were a case where the heavy vehicles were proposed to be used on roadways that didn't allow that use, it would not be, that submittal would be rejected until the routes were acceptable roadways used for the construction. And I think in terms of any damages done outside of the limits of work, if that's done by the contractor, that's the contractor's responsibility. If there's a direct cause and effect of damage done by the contractor, that is borne by the contractor. It has to be proven to be that's the case, but if that is what happens, that's their responsibility. They have a responsibility to maintain the existing roadways around. In all likelihood, they would be accessing mostly from Route 135 for the majority of their work, but there would be paving operations that are going to go in one direction. Things like that would have to be part of the construction submittal process.
All right, we'll take some final questions or comments. Anyone has?
Hi, Sharon Brickman, 166 Boden Lane. I'd like clarification, please. If we're concerned about, if we'd like to have new sidewalks installed on both sides of Boden Lane, have the road repaired, even if it's the contractor's fault, after the completion of the project, is that something we would take up with the town of Natick, or does this have anything to do with DOT?
I'll answer a question to give you guys a break for a little bit. You've done an awesome job of answering questions from the public. I know they're not always the answers that people want to hear, but I appreciate all of the response that you've given. And I know to some of the questions you haven't been able to provide answers for, you'll work on some follow-up for that, so thank you. Regarding Boden Lane itself, if it was not damaged by the contractor, that's still the responsibility of the town. So outside of the limits of this work, outside of damage that's done by the contractor, any upgrades to the road would be the responsibility of the town.
And if there are any damages that you notice or by the contractor, you can reach out to Mass DOT or through the town. They can reach out to us and we can have the contractor repair accordingly. So there's a process there.
So we have the room till 8 o'clock tonight, but the engineers will stay as long as we can to answer any questions if you want to come up. But at this point, it's 7:57 and declaring the hearing closed. Thank you for your input. We definitely heard your messages about safety and the direction of the project, and we will examine the transcript when it's produced and provide responses to the questions and the written comments that you guys sent in to us. And I just want to thank the town, John Marshall, and the DPW for their coordination and help throughout this. It's a breath of fresh air. They're great officials to work with. Thank you.